Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are. Our instructor will join in about 5 minutes and then we will start. Hi, Robert. Can you hear me? Hi, Robert. Robert, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Hi, Robert. Can you hear me? Can everybody else hear me? Okay. Just let me just check with Robert to ensure that. Okay. Sorry about this. Just give me a few minutes to check with him. Hi, Robert. Can you hear me?
Okay. Can you hear me? It's
Yes,
good
I
now?
can. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I think we'll start. We've lost a few
Yes,
minutes,
yes.
but let's just go ahead and start. I will just. We have several candidates already on the call, so we can just go right ahead into it, Robert.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologies for my late entrance. I hope I'll be able to catch up and regain the lost time. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, the candidates, for making the time, and it's a sign that you take this very seriously. And I just wanted to start off by reminding you the key things that as we prepare for the exam, that we have to really consider. Beginning with the top left, you have always take time and review the PMP exam content outline, the ECO. I'm sure you have it, you have a copy, or you can access it on the PMI website. It's completely free of charge. But of course, I know by now you have it. Look at all the 3 domains. Now we're moving to the right, yeah? The 3 domains. Look at all the tasks under the people domain, yeah? About 14, and then look at those under the process domain, about 17. Look at the business environment, and remember, to prepare for the exam, it has to be balanced. Okay, you should not ignore any one of those, because each one is equally important. Then also make use of the PMI study hall. It has the best practice questions. I know people run around going to YouTube and all that, but I can assure you the PMI study hall has the best. It's okay to go to YouTube if you have recommended resources, but PMI study hall is reliable. It's updated by PMI. It has got verified questions that prepare you for the exam. Then, of course, always, as PMI puts it, we must be balanced. We must be able to run projects using the agile approach, know the difference when to go with the waterfall and when to tailor and do the hybrid. Right, so we're going to look at a number of tasks. The first one is in the business environment domain, where we'll be looking at ensuring the transfer of knowledge for project continuity, and these are the subtasks. We'll be looking at the project responsibilities within the team with respect to knowledge transfer. Then we look at the expectations for the work environment, the kind of environment that supports knowledge transfer, because that's very important for continuity. And then we also see how to confirm the approach for knowledge transfer. I move straight to the first one. Maybe first put it into context. Why knowledge transfer? Why knowledge transfer? So we normally say that every project is unique, and of course, being unique doesn't mean that it's all new. We actually gain knowledge from past projects, especially if they are similar, but you can only gain knowledge from past projects if there was a system that captures that knowledge and documents it, and they store it and makes it easily accessible. Okay, so you can knowledge can only be transferred if it was captured, stored, and also made available. Okay, being retrievable. So that's very important, and it of course supports growth. It supports growth. But if I could take you back, I'm sure most of you understand what we call organizational project management maturity. And this is where an organization is mature in terms of project management knowledge, processes, standards, roles, etc. So that's definitely enabled by accumulation of project management knowledge, best practices, etc. Okay. And as you can see at the bottom, it supports the principles. Collaboration, of course, results into sharing of knowledge. When we are performing project work, we capture lessons learned, and that translates into knowledge that can be retained. And then when we deal with uncertainty, how we approach it, the do's and don't do's, things that we succeed to do and those that do not, we were not successful, all that results into knowledge. Right, so the first subtask was about discussing the project responsibilities within the team. And the way I've structured it is to demonstrate what's the project manager's responsibility in as far as knowledge transfer or knowledge management generally is concerned. Of course, the project manager is the role model, is the lead, is the integrator, is the one who brings all the pieces together. And therefore, the project manager has to set the stage, okay? Establishes the knowledge management approach. And in some organizations, under the CI strategy or policy, we call it continuous improvement, policy or strategy, you find clear guidelines on how knowledge is managed at the level of the organization. And if a project is sponsored by that organization, definitely it will have a very clear knowledge management approach. Now, of course, that translates into documentation, templates, processes, and these templates could be lessons learned registers, processes like lessons learned sessions. They create sessions where people retrospect and look back and say, okay, so how did we do this month, and so on and so forth. Now, when we consider the agile, for it, it's a rule. You have the retrospectives at the end of every iteration, and you're looking at, what went well, what you could improve, etc. Now, you also have other collaborative meetings where knowledge is shared seamlessly, but all that has to be enabled by the project manager. If the project manager appreciates that there should be knowledge sharing sessions, then they will happen. Now, of course, if the project manager introduces it over time, it becomes a culture, and people will be looking forward to learning a thing from each and everybody, and that, of course, promotes growth. Okay, so, and then the good thing, the advantage now with the project manager, if the project manager succeeds in doing that, is that you have the entire team knowledgeable about how to approach things, how to solve problems. And of course, that means that everybody is enabled, has the knowledge, and you stop relying on individuals who are like star performers. Okay, we move on to the team member responsibilities. Of course, once the PM has set the stage, the team members, of course, are supposed to, follow suit, document the knowledge, the lessons learned, participate effectively in knowledge sharing sessions, participate in mentorship kind of sessions. How do we call it? Cross-pollination of knowledge between project teams, and so on and so forth. So you have peer reviews, you have collaboration, and so on and so forth. And of course, you have the documentation, the work artifacts that are shared across the board. You could also have these external stakeholders who could come in form of functional managers. Maybe that is a requisitioning department, or you have subject matter experts, people who are experts in that specific domain, and they provide training, they provide mentorship, they bring knowledge that that is kind of specialized, that nobody else had on board on the team. And these are also other players in as far as knowledge management or knowledge transfer is concerned. Now, the fourth is vital, and of course you covered it in your project management training. It's about one of the roles of the PMOs. On top of the standardization of processes and procedures, and the PMOs are also responsible for knowledge management. Remember, once a project has come to an end, all the project documentation, the reports, a copy is supposed to be retained by the PMO, lessons learned, project documents like risk registers, like stakeholder registers, like, all these documents, lessons learned repositories, they are kept by the PMO, so that there is transfer of knowledge, so there is continuity. So when I come in as a new PM, the person who will do induction for me is the person from the PMO. And because the PMO has got this wealth of knowledge, if the organization has been doing projects or similar projects in the past, then I have the benefit of being inducted by somebody who understands what we need to do, how we need to do it, the do's and don't do's, and therefore knowledge, as far as knowledge transfer is concerned, the PMO plays a vital role, okay? Including providing templates for lessons learned that I should use on this newly initiated project, okay? The next subtask is about outlining expectations for the working environment. So now we have talked about the roles. How about the environment? How should the environment look like, or how should it be structured in order for it to enable the knowledge transfer, okay? So we need an effective work environment that allows continuous knowledge sharing. If we go back, you remember when you're going over Agile, and we're talking about Agile workspaces, and we say these are open workspaces. In fact, we call them caves and commons. Commons meaning it's an open space where the team works from, they collaborate, they hold collaborative meetings, they can do sprint planning meetings, and so on and so forth. Now, that environment that is open, where people are co-located, I'm sure you remember the term, enables real-time exchange of information, conversations, sharing of knowledge, and so on and so forth. So if the PM has done his or her role, and the team leaders have also played their roles, they have set the stage, then the culture takes root. And with this environment that is open, then there is, as you may remember from your Agile kind of lessons, you have osmotic learning. Okay, osmotic learning, one learning from the other. Okay, so that's an environment that enables knowledge transfer. Now, you could also have environments where learning, where you have dedicated time for learning. And because, for example, if you are building a system or a product that has an element of innovation, where we want to see, test, review what we're doing as we go, that also creates an opportunity for learning. Okay. And in fact, in modern day project management, that's encouraged. So that, we continuously learn from each other, learn from our work, know what works, what doesn't work. Okay. And then, of course, we create that collaborative, psychologically safe environment where people can exchange ideas, they can contribute, they can say what they think, they can challenge the status quo, and all that brings about learning, brings about creativity, which of course benefits the project. And so an effective working environment for knowledge transfer promotes open communication, collaboration, psychological safety, as opposed to working in silos. So just imagine every concept that we have talked about, if you flip it and you look at the opposite, from the role of the PM, the teams, if they don't play that role, or if they don't appreciate knowledge sharing, of course, that becomes a problem. All right, and how about the environment? Okay, supports continuous learning through feedback. We encourage feedback. We have access to knowledge repositories like documents or project documents of past projects. And then cross-training, shared ownership, reduced dependence on individuals, teamwork, all those are enablers for knowledge management. Next, confirming that the approach for knowledge transfer, of course, ensuring that knowledge transfer involves treating knowledge as a strategic asset. So this is about the attitude, or the culture. How does the organization treat knowledge? If the organization doesn't consider knowledge, but rather considers individuals, then that might cause problems. But if knowledge is considered as an asset, then the individuals will be working towards creating knowledge. Okay, so that we do not have champions, we actually have well-designed systems that work for us, ones that we update all the time, that keep pace with the trends, with what is changing, with what is new, that we can tailor in different circumstances. Okay, so again, we are reminded here that knowledge comes in two forms. There's what is documented, maybe in the lessons learned registers, and we also have knowledge that resides in people's minds as a result of the experience, the insights that they get to develop. And whereas it's easy to exchange explicit knowledge, knowledge that is expressed, documents, reports, pictures, tables, data, it's not that easy to exchange tacit knowledge. Now, for tacit knowledge, the knowledge that resides in your mind, in my mind, if it's going to be exchanged, then the environment must be conducive. Okay, must be conducive. So who creates that conducive environment? It's the PM. It's the PM. It's the team leader. You create the right environment for people to freely, willingly share knowledge. Okay, this could happen during maybe mentorship sessions, or you have peer coaching or something like that. Okay, so that's tacit knowledge. The senior or somebody who is more knowledgeable, more experienced in something, shares what they know with somebody who is less knowledgeable. So it requires fostering an environment where collaboration is viewed as something that we all want to adopt. And this occurs both at the individual, project, and organizational levels. So this has a lot to do with the culture, okay? Resulting in continuous knowledge flow, reduced dependence on individuals, improved continuity. So the last line is the whole essence of knowledge management, knowledge transfer, improving project continuity, so continuity of knowledge. So if there were mistakes that were done in the past, they are not repeated. If we found a better way of eliciting requirements, a better way of building a process flow chart, a better way of developing a stakeholder engagement assessment metrics and presenting it, then if we developed it, then we should people should know the best way to do it, and we pass on that knowledge. Okay, so that's it on the first task. Let's look at these questions that are related to the task we just ran over. Please post quickly. Let's engage. So appeal in an agile environment realizes that some new team members are having difficulty understanding how more senior team members accomplished certain results on the project. What should the project manager do? Yeah. New members want to learn. A, arrange a review meeting with stakeholders. B, ensure team members focus on their tasks. D, assess the need for knowledge transfer. And D, encourage and facilitate peer mentoring. Yeah. So clearly, you realize that the answer is in having the new team members learn from the senior team members. And what do you call that? Of course, that's mentorship, okay? Right, so the answer is D. Encouraging and facilitating peer mentoring can be an effective way for new team members to learn from more experienced team members and understand how certain results were achieved on the project. This can also help promote collaboration and teamwork. So I want to take you back a bit. So what you see, what is being described in the scenario is one, the junior people at the entry level, learning from the senior people. And the key word there is peer mentorship. Seniors mentoring or showing the new team members on how to accomplish certain tasks. Okay, so that should have, by looking at the scenario, it should have given you a sense of that. Okay, right. Next. Okay. So clearly from the question, from the scenario, actually, you are able to see where the problem is. So the project manager in handling this situation should be addressing the problem. If you look at the third sentence actually says the project manager notices that the development team is relaxed and not spending time on handover process. Now, this is the problem, which is impacting application support. Okay, so the answer should be one that addresses that problem. A, confront the development team and demand their immediate attention to the handover process. The word confront is an unlikely term to use when you're leading people, you're leading teams. Okay. B, meet with the development team to discuss the importance of the handover process and its impact on application support. So the, the point is that when you're leading a team, you use persuasion. You use persuasion, you show the reasons as to why, you show them reason to, take action, do something, but you have to demonstrate why it should be done. So you use persuasion rather than confrontation or force. C, responsibility, a process to another team member to ensure it gets done properly. You don't delegate your responsibility as a PM. D, disregard the issue and expect the development team will address. Now that's passive. So D and C, D is passive. C is it's like delegating your authority or your responsibilities. So the answer then is B. Okay, it's the one that clearly aligns with modern day approach to managing or leading teams. Meet with the development team to discuss the importance of the handover process and its impact on application support. Okay, it's the most effective and constructive approach in this situation. This will give the development team a chance to understand the issue and come up with a plan. So it also creates ownership, okay, and commitment, because they will do something knowing why they are doing it and what the stakes are, as opposed to confronting them or simply delegating it to somebody else. That's it. We go to the next task, which is about evaluating and delivering project benefits and value. Subtasks. The subtasks are: investigate that benefits are identified, document agreement on ownership for ongoing benefit realization, verify measurement system is in place to track benefits, evaluate delivery options to demonstrate value, and appraise stakeholders of value gain progress. So if you look at these 5 subtasks, you realize that this explains why projects are initiated. Okay, projects are initiated because the sponsors of the project, the stakeholders, see value. They say, if we take this initiative, it's going to result into an impact. We're going to impact a community. We're going to upgrade our system. We're going to digitize our processes. We're going to, so you want to be sure from the get-go that you know the benefits. That's the first point, okay? And then the second point is about having an agreement, okay, on how benefits will be realized, okay, an agreement with the stakeholders, and then ownership for the ongoing benefits realization. Then the third is, how shall we measure these benefits? The fourth is now evaluating delivery options to demonstrate. How shall we demonstrate that? Okay, and then the last is, how you appraise the stakeholders of the value. So I want to draw your attention to this visual here, which gives us a sense of what we mean by value, by showing us the 3 stages that we consider when we're talking about business value or value created by a project. If you look on the left-hand side, you have what we call the pre-project work. This happens before a project is initiated. So it's what justifies the project. It's where you have the business case developed. It's where you have the benefits management plan developed. It's where you have justification for initiating a project. Okay, so you have the business, rather the needs assessment, you have the business case, you have the benefits management plan. And if that's strong, if there's a strong case, then a project is initiated. And then you run the project. If you look at the extreme right, when the project comes to an end, then you have the post-project results. So you hand over the product, the result, to the ops, the operations, okay, the receiving organization, which puts into operation whatever it is that we had as our product. So then if we go back to our concept of business value, the business value will have been established during the pre-project work. Why are we doing this project? Okay, and then the confirmation of the results or the value that we get is towards the end. Now, I want to remind you a few things. One, you remember when we talk about benefits realization, benefits could be realized incrementally. Okay, so you have a project, and this project is going to be done in more or less like phases, and you have incremental delivery of benefits or value. So you don't have to wait until the end of the project to realize the benefits during the post-project kind of period. So that's one scenario. The second scenario is where the value is realized at the end. The way the project is designed, there's value realization at the end. That's the second. The third scenario is where benefits or value is not even realized at the end. It's realized so many months or even a year after the project has come to an end, depending on the nature of the project. I can give examples on each one of those scenarios. On the first one, where you have incremental value realization, it's where you have, for example, we're building a system, maybe it's an ERP system, and we are releasing modules as we go. So when we release the finance module, the finance people start using it. So we are realizing value even before we complete the entire project. Then next is the HR module, then the CRM module, and on and on and on. So that's incremental delivery. The second scenario where it has to be delivered at the end, let's assume maybe we're building a hospital, a rural hospital, and we have to complete everything if the hospital is going to operate. So that one value gets realized at the end. We start cutting the mortality rates once the hospital goes into operation. Before that, it doesn't happen. Now, the third scenario where you have the benefits or value realized so many months, so many periods after the closure of the project could be an agricultural project. Maybe it's a coffee plantation. We're planting coffee, we're planting forests, and we're going to see the benefits so many months after. So I believe that kind of gives us the context of business value on projects. So the first step, of course, is to investigate that benefits are identified, that we are running the right project that is going to give us benefits. So we review the business case and the benefits management plan, generally the business documents. Then consult stakeholders so that there is a clear understanding of what the benefits are. Are they quantifiable? Okay. Which metrics are we using to quantify them? Okay. Now, there could be tangible benefits. There could also be intangible benefits, like, if it's a marketing campaign, we are probably trying to increase our visibility, and you can't easily quantify that, but you can, of course, use some tools to know where you were before and where you are after the marketing campaign project. Okay. Then by doing that, you are able to clearly demonstrate what the value is, what the benefits are that we're going to get at the end of the project. Because on some projects, you have both tangible and intangible benefits. Okay. And where on some projects you only have tangible benefits, or in other projects you only have intangible benefits. So you can talk about maybe knowledge gained by our teams that's intangible. You can't, you know, and then you can also talk about the increase in access to potable, clean water. That's tangible. You can talk about the numbers and so on and so forth. So this is where you establish the reason, the rationale for implementing a project. So clearly defined and validated benefits aligned with the business value and the strategic intent. The next one is documenting agreement on ownership for ongoing benefits. So you want to have not just the benefits, but have buy-in, and you also have the people that we call benefits owners. Those who will be responsible for ensuring that value is realized, benefits are realized. We call them benefits owners. I'm sure you saw this in lesson 1 in your PMP training. And then you could have roles, responsibilities, accountability in the process of value realization. Okay. And then you have a common agreement, you have commitment, you have clear documentation, you have the benefits realization plans. When are the benefits supposed to be realized? What are the metrics that we will use? Who is the benefits owner? All that is clarified. So clear ownership ensures accountability for continuous value realization. The third is about verifying the measurement system in place to track benefits. So they normally say, oh, what you can't measure, you simply can't improve. Okay, what you can't measure, you can't improve. So that's the point. So we're talking about the benefits, talking about value realization, it must be measured. You have to quantify it. You have to, have a mechanism to track it. All right, so we define the benefit measurement methods, including, the metrics, could be efficiency levels of customer satisfaction, maybe using NPS. And then you can also talk about the financial metrics, which are common on some projects: return on investment, the net present value, the cost benefit analysis, the payback period, internal rate of return, IRR. And then, so whatever it is that we have as the value, as the benefits, we should have a clear way of measuring it. Then we establish the baseline. Where are we now? Okay. And then we see the impact that we're going to have, or the benefits that will be realized. Okay. Sometimes these are linked to the organizational KPIs. And for example, we say, if we introduce this product in our bank, it will increase our revenue. These products 1, 2, 3, they will increase our revenues next year by X percentage. Okay, because these are products that have been analyzed so well, and we know there's demand for those products and they are profitable. Okay, so they could be linked to KPIs. And then there must be clear tools that enable us to track the performance. Okay, and then also validation of the benefits. Outcome, the reliable measurement systems that enable objective tracking and validation of value delivered. The fourth subtask on this concept of value realization is evaluating the delivery options to demonstrate value. Remember, I talked about the 3 scenarios: incremental delivery of value at the end, and third, delivery of value post-project. Okay, so this is what this subtask is about. Assess multiple delivery approaches, phased delivery, incremental releases, full deployment, etc. So apply cost-benefit analysis and feasibility studies to determine the optimal value delivery approach. And of course, this is always informed by what the customers want. Okay, if, for example, we are running a project and it's supposed to cut down infant mortality rate, or we are supposed to cut down malaria prevalence, or maybe cut down the prevalence of an epidemic, then the incremental delivery of value is what most people will be looking at. So that our interventions should be done maybe to begin with where it's hurting most, where people are most affected, so that we save lives. So sometimes it's not driven by what we want, it's driven by, the criticality of the problem that is causing this project to be initiated. So all those are aspects practically that we have to take into consideration. So incremental delivery value techniques, deliver value adding, yes. Enable stakeholder feedback, that's always the advantage of incremental delivery. We get feedback so that as we move on, we keep on improving. And then conducting prototyping or piloting or presenting a proof of concept, very important, okay? Especially if we are dealing with a project that is associated with a lot of uncertainty, maybe it's a new product, or we are operating in an environment that is completely new, okay? So we don't know how the culture, we don't know much about the culture, we don't know how the stakeholders are going to respond, so you're better off prototyping, piloting, and so on, so that you can validate your assumptions. Then select a delivery approach that maximizes business value, efficiency, etc. So the approach to delivering value is very important and has to be discussed and has to be justified. Okay, outcome, an optimized delivery strategy that is ensured adding and continuous realization of the projects. The fifth subtask is appraising stakeholders of value gain. Now, it's one thing to embark on a project which everybody at the onset appreciated that it was going to create value. It's another thing keeping that kind of attitude, that buy-in, that support from the stakeholders. So how do we achieve that? Of course, communicating, appraising them, updating them of how we are doing. So we develop and execute a communication strategy to report on the benefits realization so that everybody is in the know that we're actually making progress. Okay, so we provide regular performance updates, maybe through dashboards or reports or presentations or workshops, demonstrate incremental value. If that's the option that we are taking, they should see that we're actually realizing value. Then conduct review sessions and get feedback, so getting to know what they think about our performance, about the performance of our product. Then that feedback should help us improve. Okay, reassess and communicate benefits throughout the project lifecycle, and that's about stakeholder engagement, where it's a point of intersection of stakeholder engagement and value realization. So transparent communication, maintained stakeholder confidence, and assured alignment is what actually keeps the stakeholders' appetite up for our project and its results. Let's look at this question. Right. During sign-off for a strategic project that resulted in additional costs, a project manager was unable to justify the additional expense in relation to the business value realized with successful implementation. What should the project manager have done to avoid this situation? Now, what's the best practice in view of what has just occurred? A, presented an evaluation of the potential benefits identified in the initial business case as enough to justify additional expense costs. So if you look at the statement, it doesn't seem to hold, because if you present an evaluation of the potential benefits, that doesn't give you justification to add to add expenses. No. Okay. Remember, you have done a cost benefit analysis, so you know the costs and they justify the benefit. Rather, the benefits justify the costs, and it's because the benefits are more than the costs. So if you start increasing costs simply because you got a sign off that the benefits are appreciated and are needed, then you could actually get to a point where the costs exceed the benefits. So A does not hold water. B, measured and tracked the project benefits identified in the business case throughout the project life cycle. Okay, so what has that got to do with the costs? Measured and tracked the project benefits identified in the business case. So that one gives you half the information, nothing to do with what has just happened, because the answer should speak to the scenario that we have just seen, and what the project manager should have done to avoid such a scenario. So B does not provide that. C, performed a reassessment of the current state of the organization. Oh, okay. So I think we need to check this again. Measured and tracked the project benefits identified in the business case throughout the life cycle. I think this justifies the point that I made earlier on. Let's move on to C. Performed a reassessment of the current state of the organization after project implementation to show the benefits that may not address the problem. Shared non-financial and tangible benefits such as customer satisfaction and good reputation as indicators for showing value. So actually the best answer is B, because if you keep track, this is what I was explaining, if you keep track of the cost benefit analysis or the justification for the project, you know when this should not happen. So let's look at the explanation. It is not enough to evaluate the potential benefits of the project in the business case in the beginning. You have to measure and track the benefits throughout the life cycle. The PMO can track the benefits realization management process and provide benefits mapping. So the point here is that you should track the benefits identified in the business case, because by increasing costs, you may actually get to a point where those costs, some of the costs that are introduced may not justify, may not be justifiable, or may actually push the project to become, and it turns out not to be viable. So that's the whole point of tracking the benefits, checking on the business case, making reference to the business case as you go. Next. An international company is implementing an innovative technology at one of its production plants. The technology has already demonstrated positive returns at another site. What should the project manager consider as a key aspect of the successful implementation of this technology? A, assess the business case to ensure the return on investment meets or exceeds the performance indicators on the first site. B, consult with the technology manager to ensure the technology can fit in the new site. C, conduct an information sharing workshop to present the new technology and its benefits to the new site's stakeholders. Develop the project charter for the implementation of the new site using lessons learned from the first. Okay, so you have a new company, an international company implementing an innovative technology at one of its production plants. The technology has already demonstrated success, okay, successful results. What should the project manager consider as an aspect, as a key aspect of the successful implementation of this technology? Okay. Are we getting responses? So we know that every project is unique. And if you're going to implement a solution in a new place, it has to be tailored. It has to be adapted to that new place. You could have a completely new set of EEFs, factors, or call them constraints that are within that environment, and they will affect the level of this or the level of success. So definitely, that would be very, very important. So the answer here would be B, consult with the technology manager to ensure the technology can fit in the new site. Okay. Oh, let's see, let's consider, let's look at D, develop the charter for the implementation of the new site using lessons learned from the first site. Okay. I want to hear from you. About C, conduct an information sharing workshop to present a new technology and its benefits to the new sites. Can you post your answers? Okay. So global companies must consider the impact of change at a local level. This is critical for the success of any change management activities. The local organizational culture may derail expectations of strategies. So this is about, again, adapting anything. Could be the technology, could be the approach to the local environment, okay? So if you look at the last paragraph here, it says effective organizational change management builds and sustains alignment with process updates, capability enhancement, communicating the vision and goals associated with the change added in the project to achieve buy-in. Okay. We move on to the third task. Evaluate and address external business environment changes for the impact on scope. So I want to introduce this task this way. You have a project. Let's say yourself, myself, we are project managers and we have got experience in a certain jurisdiction. Let's say you're operating in Ghana, I'm operating in Kigali, somebody is operating in Zambia. So I may have experience running this project in a certain environment. So to understand the effect of the external business environment, assume that you're running the same project that you're familiar with, but now if you've been running it in Zambia, this time around, you're being hired to run the same project in Senegal. Okay. So what do you find in Senegal? Completely new regulations or slightly different regulations. The culture is different. The market conditions are different. The skills levels of the people that work with you different. Governance structures in the sponsoring organization different. So we say now you are being exposed to a totally different business environment, and that could affect your project. So that's one way of looking at it. Now, you may do a survey and understand all those factors that are going to affect your project, which is a wise thing, the best thing to do as a PM, professional PM. Then the next thing is, while the project is on course, we shouldn't assume that the conditions that we established when the project was getting off the ground, being initiated, are still the same. Conditions could change. New taxes, new regulations could come into force, new laws, new taxes. There could be, changes in in the political landscape. All manner of changes could happen. And if they do, then our external environment has changed. And we have to, first of all, assess the impact of those changes on our project and then act accordingly. Now, some of the factors that could change could also be about the sponsoring organization. Let's say I was hired to run a project in Senegal. And then as the project is being executed, the company, the sponsoring company, is acquired by, an Ivorian company. And so when this Ivorian company acquires the sponsors of my project, their priorities are slightly different. And probably the project I'm handling is no longer so much of a priority. Or maybe they say, oh, this is a very fine project, we want to scale it. And so those external changes will have had an impact on the project, on the parameters of the project. You can talk of the scope of the project, the schedule, the costs, etc. Other factors could be as a result of maybe market conditions changing, price variations, all manner of things. So all those changes are external. You have no control over them, and yet they could impact on your project. So that's the context I wanted to put across. So number one, you survey changes to the external business environment. Number two, assess and prioritize impact on project scope based on the changes. Number three, recommend options to cope with the changes or to adapt to the changes. And number four, continually review the external business environment for anything that could change. And if it was to change, it would affect our project. Let's start with the first one. So this is Robert, an experienced project manager who has been running projects in the eastern part of Africa. All of a sudden, somebody appreciates my skills and I'm hired to run this project in Senegal. So the moment I land there, I need to understand the environment, and we can talk about the regulations, the technology, the geopolitical factors, the market conditions, and how they will affect the project. And remember, during your training, you referred to these as EEFs, Enterprise Environmental Factors. And as I try to scope and find out what these are, there are a number of frameworks, as you can see on bullet point number one, could be PESTEL, the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental, could be VUCA, or you could actually get a subject matter expert to sit down with you, and they appraise us, they update us on what the conditions are. You could rely on legal advisors, you could rely on senior project managers, you could rely on a PMO, you could rely on some other subject matter experts. Or you can form the core team and then they generate ideas on what the EFs are likely to be. So that's the first thing, to survey and see the changes that will have an effect on your project. Number two, assess and prioritize impact on the project scope, backlog, based on changes in the environment. So now we're supposed to analyze how the identified external changes affect our project objectives. And then those that have the biggest impact will have to do something about them, okay? So we evaluate alignment with organizational strategy, perform the impact and risk assessment. Remember, some of the EFs actually turn out to be constraints, and these could actually be risks, all right? Could be risks, factors that could affect our ability to achieve the project objectives, okay? And therefore, we should be able to prioritize them so that we know to what extent they will affect the project. Prioritize changes based on business value, impact, risk exposure, and then compliance. Okay. And then the outcome of this is a focused attention on high impact changes requiring immediate action or immediate redress. Next, we have we come up with recommended options for the changes. So how do we deal with these changes? Now, as we said, the changes, the ones that happen during the course of the project, changes in our environment, maybe there are political changes, maybe the priorities of the sponsoring organization has changed. So what do we do? How do we respond, okay, to adapt? Could be maybe adjusting the scope of the project, could be revising the schedule, could be budget reallocation, okay? So we assess options against the business value, the feasibility, organizational capability. All these will come to bear when we are recommending changes in response to when we are recommending actually adjustments in response to changes in our environment. And those should support decision making. Trade-offs have to be made. Okay, so do we scale down the scope? What does that mean in terms of value realization and so on and so forth? So the outcome would be informed decisions, ensured optimal alignment between external changes and project delivery. So if something happens and it's an external factor, whatever decision you want to take should be one that does not compromise the value of the project, the intent of the project, and so on and so forth. Number 4 is the vigilance that is expected of professional project managers, because you may do a thorough survey of the EEFs at the beginning of the project, but as the project progresses, you definitely need to keep your ear on the ground, as they say, to know what is changing. Are there new regulations, maybe to do with the environmental assessment? Are there new laws, maybe labor laws? Are there new compliance requirements by the regulator? You want to know all those because they could have a bearing on the success of the project. So you have to establish ongoing monitoring mechanisms for external changes in the environment, and those could be through maybe consultations with subject matter experts. You could also have periodical reviews where you do not only review the performance of the project, but you also assess the environment. What has changed in our environment? And if that change has an impact on our project, we need to pick it and assess it and take action. And then maintaining active stakeholder engagement to understand what's changing from their viewpoint, could be their expectations, could be their requirements, could be their appetites towards the project. For example, when there was COVID, most of the donors kind of rolled back their funding for different projects, and that's something that somebody picks. So if something happens, you need to stay in touch with the stakeholders, maybe the funders and so on and so forth, and know what's going on. Or maybe the funder has gone bankrupt. What does that mean to our project? Okay. Then some of those changes could be picked as risks. Okay, as risks, things that could affect our project and throw it off balance. Right. So let's look at these questions here. A new regulation has been approved that would impact the deliverables in the 4th phase of the project. The delivery is following an iterative approach and is currently completing the 2nd phase. What should the project manager do next? A, consult with the project sponsor to discuss a cost increase. B, get approval for the additional budget from the steering committee. C, meet with the subject matter experts to assess the impact to objectives. D, acquire approval for any exception to the implementation of the new regulation. So a new regulation has been approved that will impact the deliverables in the fourth phase of the project. But where are we? The delivery is following an iterative approach, and we are currently completing the second phase. So we have some time before we get to the fourth phase. What should the project manager do next? Okay. Now, consult with the sponsor to discuss a cost increase. Normally, you would go with the sponsor with an assessment, okay? Either a sponsor or maybe a steering committee or a change control board, wherever it is, okay? Yes, it's a regulation and there are no two ways about it, but since there's time, then we need to assess the impact and, be prepared. B, get approval for the additional budget from the steering committee. That's not a bad thing to do. And actually, even A is not a bad thing to do, but is it the next thing that one needs to do? That's the question. C, meet with the subject matter experts, people who are knowledgeable about what we are doing, what has just happened, things to do with regulations and the cost of compliance, and then assess the impact to our objectives. D, acquire approval for an exception to the implementation of the new regulation. So we are expected to assess the impact, okay? Since we have time, that's another advantage. We are on the second phase, and the regulation is going to affect our fourth phase. So meet with the subject matter experts to assess the impact to objectives is the best choice, as impacts in cost and scheduling, resourcing must be assessed. So if we go to the sponsor or we go to the steering committee, we know what we are asking for. Okay, right. Next. Okay, we're through the question. A project is developing a product where the time to market is critical. During the execution phase, the client submits a change request to include the latest technology that will enhance the product features and provide a competitive advantage. This is not unusual, okay? The change will impact the project constraints, but the benefits outweigh the cost and the effort. What should the project manager do next? So this is something to do with governance. Okay, being aware of the governance system in place and not wanting to bypass it. A, adopt an incremental delivery approach and release essential features of the product into the market fast to counter competition. Where that does not, that might not be the next thing to do. Okay? Might not be the next thing to do. Why? Because we want to make sure that the change is properly integrated and we have everybody on board. We have consensus across the board. B, start a separate project to adopt the new technology incrementally to enhance the product features as the technology matures. That's like postponing something that that is actually vitally important now. Okay, so that might not be a plausible answer. C, perform an integrated change control process and review the project constraints to effectively manage the enhanced scope. So an integrated change control process, as you remember from your training, is where the change is assessed for its impact on the different parameters, or see how it affects all the constraints, time, scope, cost, quality, etc. And then based on that, a decision is made. D, close the current project and start a new project with an incremental. That one does not appeal to the question at hand. All right, A, adopt an incremental. Okay, adopt an incremental delivery approach, referencing effective Okay. So this is the hybrid. It's a trap. It's a trap. Start a separate. Okay, but that one is wrong. Okay. By adopting the incremental approach during execution, the project team can first develop essential features of the product to reduce the time to market and get a foothold in the market to counter competition. Okay. So this is a trap. All right. Task 4, which is about supporting organizational change, is about assessing organizational culture. I'm sure you recall this from lesson 1, which is under the business environment on supporting organizational change. Evaluate impact of organizational change to project and determine required actions. Evaluate impact of the project to the organization and determine required actions. So we're going to look at each one of them at a time. But before we do that, I wanted us to first make sense of what we refer to as change, organizational change, okay? So I want to use this slide to put it all in context. So if you look at this, I'm sure some of you remember it from your lesson 1. Most projects, especially those that are sizable, whenever they are implemented, they will bring about a change. And this change that is brought about by the project is likely to affect how people have always worked, how people have always gone about doing things, how people have always lived, okay? Changes are not, changes create discomfort. Why? Because they challenge the status quo. They challenge how we have always done things. And because of that, people have a natural disposition to resist change, okay? If you introduce something new, people quickly push back. Why? Because it's unknown, okay? So our default actually response to change is resistance, skepticism, and so on and so forth. So this is what this concept is about. So if you look on the left-hand side, we say often projects fail because of poor change management strategies. So if we're introducing a new housing scheme, we have to really accompany it with what we refer to as a change management effort. We're dealing with people. Therefore, they need to appreciate why change and what's the risk of not changing, okay? If we are digitizing the processes in our organization and everything is going online, how we, serve our customers, how we exchange information, how processes are done. If it's all going online, people need both the staff and our customers need to know why change. Okay, so that's something that normally has to accompany a project. If you look at this vision that I've projected, moving from the current to the future state, on the upper part, you have the technical side. Normally, people spend so much time on that, which is a very nice thing because it's the one that makes things happen. It's the one that will create tangible products. But if you look on the lower side, is the people side. If the people side is not addressed, okay, or is not appreciated, then you have slow adoption, you have resistance, you could even have a total failure of the project. So this is the conversation we are having now, okay? Supporting organizational change, okay? So if you look at the bullet, change management at the project level is about ensuring that the project achieves its intended results and outcomes by supporting the individual transitions required by that project. Okay, so let's look at this. How do we assess? First, we look at the organizational structure, we look at the culture, we look at the organizational norms, and we also consider people's attitude towards change. If it's a large organization, it will probably have old, I mean, well-established culture, how things are done, and maybe it's hierarchical and all that. So people are very comfortable in that established way of doing things. Now, if you're introducing your digitization program or project, then you're going to face resistance for sure. Why? Because it's a well-established organization with a strong culture, and therefore, if you introduce something new, you need to do something. I mean, as a way of introducing it, showing reason why we are changing our ways of working, why we need to go digital, and also explaining the risks of not changing actually, so that they know that if we don't change, if we don't adapt, these are the dangers, these are the risks. We're going to remain uncompetitive, and maybe we'll go out of business with time. Okay, because our competitors are all, following the trend. Now, if we decide not to, then these are the risks. So that is the soft part, and it's not just soft, but actually essential part that has to be addressed. So we need to assess the disposition of the organization towards change. So the outcome would be a clear understanding of organizational culture, enabled tailored change management strategies, and improved project success. I could share a quick story about this. I have a background in banking, and one of the oldest banks in Rwanda was actually the last to digitize and get their services online. And there was a lot of resistance. It had the largest branch network, had the largest number of customers. And so there was a lot of resistance coming from where? Coming from the customers themselves, the account holders. They were saying, why are you changing? We are used to having our bank statements and everything in a little book, where they used to, if somebody goes to perform a transaction, everything is recorded manually, and they take away that book and they keep it. Maybe in the night, they open it and look at it, and they see the expenditure and all the transactions during the month. And now some of them were actually old. And so we had these young people in the banking hall explaining to them about what's coming, what they should expect. That was a bit late, because these old elderly people are saying, but how shall I access my statement? Then somebody would say online. Then the old man would say, where? Where is online? They say, no, it will be sent to your email. I have no email. Okay, so there were all sorts of friction, and now that was just the customers. How about the banking, the staff for the bank themselves? These had worked for the bank for many years, and some of them felt that it was a ploy to get rid of them. And and they're saying, now we can't learn these new things, and therefore we're going to lose our jobs. So a change management effort should have come ahead of that, introduced, explained to the staff about the change, and also demonstrated how they're going to be supported throughout the change. And that's the next thing. Evaluate the impact of organizational change to the project and determine required action. So assess how organizational changes, e.g. restructuring, policy updates, strategic shifts will impact the scope. Now, this is the other side of the change. The changes that happen and which would affect the project scope, the project parameters, talk of the resources, the timelines, the quality, etc. And then you realign the project objectives with updated business goals, identify risks and constraints arising from organizational changes. Now, I want to draw attention to two things. There are changes that come from outside. I think we did mention them a few slides back. Those, we need to assess them and know how we're going to cope with those changes. They're coming from outside and they're affecting the project. Could be coming from the sponsors, the funders, the regulators, the stakeholders, etc. And this is what is being explained here. Now, you also have changes that are being brought about by the project. Okay. Now, if you have changes that are being brought about by the project, then we are saying you have to have, for example, change agents or a change management plan in which you have a strategy to bring everyone on board so that there is less resistance to change or no resistance to change, and there is the people are more disposed to adopting the changes. Otherwise, they can resist the changes, and that would affect the success of the project. Okay? And then evaluate impact of the project to the organization and determine the required actions. This is what I was talking about. Okay, so analyze how project outcomes would impact business processes, the organizational structure, employee roles, because some roles would disappear once the changes that we are bringing about come into force. Some roles would actually get dissolved. Maybe the organizational structure is going to change, and those people who have been holding directorships and other roles, they don't know. It's uncertain what it's going to become of them, and because of that, they will resist. They will feel bad about the change. So identify the change impacts on stakeholders, potential resistance, and then knowing what to do. So what do? We have the ADECA model. There are several change management models, but PMI presents the ADECA, creating awareness, and then awareness for the change, or the need to change, then creating the desire to change, then the knowledge, okay, that they need to have in order to change. And then ADECA, yes. Let's go back. Awareness, desire, knowledge, and then you provide the skills. You provide training. You create. You equip them with the skills to change, and then eventually you reinforce the change. Okay, by showing the results. So that whatever you said were the benefits of the change or reasons for changing, you start demonstrating that those changes, those benefits are actually being realized. Okay, if it's about serving our customers better by going online, then they should be able to see that customer satisfaction going up as a result of our online services, our online banking services, on our online booking services, and so on and so forth. All right, so it would involve training, knowledge transfer, so that they know what to do, coaching, providing support, and so on and so forth. I think we're not short of examples of where there has been resistance to change that is being brought about by those fine projects by which were conceived, planned, and are being executed without thorough knowledge of the beneficiaries or even the other stakeholders. I experienced this where you have communities actually resisting the building of a road or building of something which in actual sense you would consider to be a benefit to them, but nobody came to them before to introduce it and show them the benefits. Okay, somebody might say, we don't know what those people are doing, okay, but what they are doing is actually for their benefit, but there was no change management effort, and that's why we introduced change agents, and we have change management activities to be able to support those that are going to be affected by the changes. Okay. Outcome, smooth transition, and successful adoption of project deliverables within the organization. Let's look at these few questions here. Okay, so this is about changes in changes that happen. Okay, a project team has identified a number of defects with some deliverables and intends to resolve these as soon as possible. So these are changes within our project deliverables. The project manager will need to submit a change request to the CCB or a steering committee or some sort of governance entity. What should the project manager do before the request is submitted? So we have to recall the procedure. Number one, whenever there are changes, a change request is made. So somebody fills out that template, that form, which is a change request, stating what the change is, describing it in sufficient detail, and then showing the reason why the change is being requested. And then what the project management team does is to assess the impact of that change on, the project parameters, which we refer to as an integrated change kind of control. So you look at how this change is going to affect the entire project. Now, once that impact is ascertained, it's documented and attached to the change request form and then submitted to the CCB for approval. So the question here is, what should the project manager do before the request is submitted? Okay. A, implement the changes immediately due to time constraints. That would be bypassing the governance structures. Okay? Because who is going to pay for that? If, for example, it has a huge impact, it has an impact on the cost, who is going to pay? Somebody who approved the budget should be the one to look at this change and say, okay, so this is the benefit justifies the cost and therefore we approve. So the PM is not typically supposed to approve changes. But that being said, I have to remind you that there are normally thresholds. If the PM could approve minor changes, but that has got to be very, very clear in our change management procedures to know the thresholds. Change management procedures, which are also part of the governance structure. Okay. B, send the change request to the client for approval. Is it the client who approves the changes? The answer is no. C, complete an impact analysis of each requested change. D, send change request to the sponsor for approval. If you look at B and D, they look the same, the client and the sponsor. So the answer should be C. The project manager should complete an impact analysis of each requested change before submitting the change request to the CCB. Okay, I'm sure this is a no-brainer. All right. Next, a company is going through an organizational change. Most of the senior management has changed, including the project manager's direct supervisor. Put yourself in that position. The supervisor has an aggressive working style and has made critical comments to the project manager regarding the ongoing project without really understanding the situation. The project manager feels uncomfortable working with the new supervisor. What should the project manager do next? So these are changes that have happened outside the project, and they seem to be having an impact on the leadership of the project. So what should the project manager do next? A, hold a project review meeting to explain the key points of the project to the new supervisor. B, apply the new supervisor's recommendations to the project. C, evaluate the impact of the organizational change to the project. And D, excuse me, communicate to the project team that they need to be ready to embrace change. Okay, what do you think? So the project manager needs to deal with the change objectively and holistically. Okay? First, should understand the impact of the organization's changes to the project. With that knowledge, the the PM and the team can engage the supervisor. So the discussion is not just about what the supervisor is instructing the project manager to do, but it's actually a conversation that is comprehensive, having seen how the changes are going to impact the project. Okay, so that's the correct answer. Okay, now I've come to the end of this presentation. I invite questions from you, if that's okay. Yes.
Okay. See, we do have a few hands raised.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's see if we can start with them. Just a minute. We'll start with Fana.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good evening. I want to ask, I need some clarification for the last question. The PM be responsible to organization or project? Can you please clarify that one?
Let me put it up again, and so that we can talk while looking at it.
Yeah, and the choice can, yeah. I was thinking the answer will be A, hold the project review meeting to explain the key points of the project to the new supervisor. And the way I understand it is the supervisor has an aggressive working style. So if I show him the critical points of this project, he might understand it, or he might give me pointers.
Okay.
Or adjusting my way of the thinking as the organization or as a PM. And it's some clarification. I thought the answer will be A. But the answer is C. So can you clarify that one? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. So what you're saying is actually true, but A is a probable answer. But let's read the scenario. A company is going through an organizational change. Most of the senior management has changed, including the project manager's supervisor. The supervisor has an aggressive working style and has made critical comments to the project manager regarding the ongoing project without understanding the situation. The project manager feels uncomfortable working with the new supervisor. What should the project manager do next? So the reason we go for C and not A is that with C, you're looking at you want to first understand the impact of this change, the impact that this change is going to have on the project, looking at it holistically. But if you pick A, you're actually picking on the things that the PM is uncomfortable with regarding the supervisor's comments. So if you're going to have that conversation, that meeting with the supervisor, it's always good to have to first assess the impact. So if we just deal with one, it means this is going to be a recurring thing. Every time they discover something, maybe this could result into a decision to have a workshop to actually take the supervisor or maybe the new team through the project and then get alignment or get some sort of consensus on what their expectations are, so that going forward, we fully understand, rather than picking on one
Wouldn't
thing.
that be a second point?
No, actually,
the first,
this,
if you see the question without really understanding the situation, it says that one, that phrase, that's the phrase that catch my eyes. Without really understanding the situation means the supervisor doesn't know my project. So I explained the project for him. If he understands it or change his way of leading is one thing. Then the second step will be evaluating the impact on the organization. My priority will be for the project, right? So if the supervisor doesn't understand my project, and if he doesn't understand the PM number 2 or PM number 3, then we go to the evaluation of the impact of the organization change.
Oh, so
wouldn't
it's
that
actually
be the second one? The first step
Not-
will be I explain my project to him. Then the second step will be evaluating the impact of the organization change.
Okay. It's actually the other way around. The first thing is to, once you start seeing signs of, the supervisor coming and they think we are not doing things the way they think should be done. And the moment you start seeing such signs, then you had better quickly assess, because the first thing would be to assess the impact of the changes that are happening in the organization to our project. That's what a responsible project manager would do first. Look at the changes that are happening, because nobody else is going to do it for you. You're responsible for the project. So you're being hit the first time. You don't quickly, you can decide to react and hold until the next thing hits you, or you decide to do an assessment of the changes that have happened and how they're going to impact on your project, and then you engage. Okay, you engage with the full understanding. But if you just pick one, so the first thing would be to assess or evaluate the impact of the changes on your project before you react, because you may be reacting to one small thing and maybe another big thing hits you, and then it goes on like that. So the wisdom is in assessing the impact of the changes to your project and then developing an approach. How do we deal with this? And as I gave an example, I said you could actually set up a meeting where you're going to engage with the new management, the new senior management, and you introduce the project, talk about what it's about, the approach that we're using, and then by doing that, you actually coming down, you could preempt most of the attacks or critics that might come much later. That's the rationale. Let's look at the explanation that is given here. The project manager needs to deal with the change objectively, and first should understand the impact of the organization's changes to the project. With that knowledge, the PM and the team can engage the supervisor. The project manager should not blindly execute changes. Of course, the other one is wrong. Changes will always affect the project. So simply communicating to the team that, no, those are the other wrong answers. So the point is in the first 2 lines, what the project manager needs to do and why, okay? With that knowledge, the PM and the team can engage the supervisor, can engage the new management. Just put yourself in a place where
he has to reshuffle himself, reset himself to the new organizational structure.
Absolutely correct. Ready for the next question?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll go to Gagaga.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you don't mind, I can a little bit contribute on the response on this answer.
Say that again.
Thank you so much, presenter Mr. Robert, for the good presentation. First of all, even myself, I declined this. I thought of A. But if you go for A, you'll be dealing with the last two sentences, which includes the one which of any very emotional. The project manager feels uncomfortable working with the new supervisor. I must tell him. But we forget in the first sentence, we are told very big change. There is nowhere that even the managers sat down to see to evaluate such impact. And it's very good when you are going to talk with this manager you are not comfortable to work with, you give a holistic view of the project rather than just a part of it. That's what I could say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. My question goes back, the role in knowledge transfer. There is a knowledge for the team, the knowledge for the PMO, and so forth. But we know not all organizations have got PMO. Few organizations, very advanced, have PMO. The rest, they don't have such things. So in such situations, where does such roles of the who takes such role of the PMO? Least but not last, kindly share this presentation or the recording. Thank you.
Thank you very much for appreciating. Of course, you say with the role of the PM, that one is understood because once the project is on board, the project manager is on board, one of their responsibilities is to actually facilitate knowledge sharing, okay, through collaboration, in collaboration in problem solving, in planning, in resolving conflicts, and so on and so forth. And that fosters knowledge sharing, okay? And now you say also for the team, I think it goes without saying, because the moment you have a team on board and you have this forward-looking project manager, they will actually, whatever they model, the team will follow, okay? And then you say, what about the PMO? Because the PMO, of course, let's face it, it's in many areas, it's a new concept. Okay, we are promoting it now aggressively and showing the value that the PMO brings to organizations that do many projects, but it's a new concept still. Okay, so in the absence of the PMO, then normally what happens is that the new PM, if Robert has been hired as a new PM, I will rely on maybe other PMs that I find in the organization, or maybe some individuals that worked on a previous project, and maybe I secure an appointment and I have, a few questions to ask them. Maybe the organization could have a document kind of management system where I can retrieve some of the project documents. They have archives, maybe. Now, that one of managing project documentation is also a challenge, especially in this part of the world. But most organizations are actually waking up to this, and they're using cloud, they're using all sorts of, technologies to store project documentation. But in other words, the new PM will be inducted in most cases by the HR, and the HR has little knowledge about projects. And number two, I would go to what you see as the functional managers. Probably have a conversation with a functional manager who has been, whose department has benefited from, say, 1-2 projects, and then you have conversations with them. And then lastly, you would need subject matter experts. You look around and find somebody who is knowledgeable about what you're doing, and then learn from them. Okay. Personally, I've faced all those situations where you get into an organization and everyone is looking up to you to come up with, the best approach to get the project done. And that's why you were hired. Your CV spoke loudly about your capabilities. But this is a new environment. I have little information about what goes on here. And so you navigate and find your way. You're the pathfinder. So you rely on your interpersonal skills, good network to gain a lot of knowledge about the do's and don't do's and the best tools to use, the organizational process, assets, etc. So what PMI presents is the best practice. And if you find that you're in an organization and the best practices are not all there, then you have to adapt and navigate the environment and get to speak to people and gather as much information as you can that helps you make sense of the environment or make sense of what has happened in the past that should inform your projects.
Thank you, understood.
You're welcome.
Maybe on the request for the presentation.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. So we are going, you still have one more hand. Susan?
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good
evening, Sir Robert. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just have one confusion on one of the questions. I can't even remember it very well, but it has to do with an integrated change control process or board. I was thinking that since it's a change request, that is a request that was something that was requested to be added onto the product, I was thinking it needs to still pass through a change control board, because even in an agile environment, you still have the product owner reprioritizing a particular request. So, but here they said you should adapt an iterative this thing so that you have the product get into the market to counter the competitor. So I was a bit confused there because I thought that whatever the change is, it needs to pass through a change control board or a process. So I don't know if you can help throw more light on this question, sir. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you very much, Susan. So let's look at the question. I believe it's this one, which is kind of a hybrid. A project is developing a product. Yes. A project is developing a product where the time to market is critical. Okay. During the execution, the client submits a change request to include the latest technology that will enhance the product features and provide a competitive advantage. The change will impact project constraints. But what are these constraints? Time constraints, cost, likely quality, okay? But here you can see, but the benefits outweigh the cost and effort, okay? So it's the benefits are more than the cost. So it's just kind of justified. What should the project manager do next? A, adopt an incremental deliver approach and release essential features of the product into the market fast to counter competition. Now, let's go on. B, start a separate project to adopt the new technology. You said, then C is what you felt was the correct answer. Perform an integrated change control process and review the project constraints to effectively manage the enhanced scope. And you felt this was the answer, right? So let's look at what is being given as the explanation so that we can build it from there. Adopt an incremental delivery approach. Referencing effective project management. Okay, 8th edition. Hybrid project management introduces the concept of a checkpoint at the beginning of each phase where a decision to change PMLC methodology can be made. By adopting the incremental approach during the execution phase, let's pay attention to the last sentence, the project team can first develop essential features of the product to reduce the time to market and get a foothold in the market to counter competition. New technology can then be incrementally implemented. So the point here is, that's why I said hybrid now kicks in, balancing the need to get on the market quickly and incorporating in changes. So unless the changes affect every aspect of the product, otherwise this would be reason to break it down so that the changes can be evaluated and included. Now let me remind you something else. When we are using the agile approach, okay, let's just talk about the agile approach. When you're midway during a sprint and changes are introduced, you go ahead and finish the sprint, right? So this is the thinking here. We are in the middle of something and we want, since it is hybrid, we want to satisfy the customers by meeting the timelines, the time that we set to deliver a product because of competition. At the same time, there are new enhancements that we want to include. Now, in such a case, you can actually enhance, since you are delivering incrementally, you still have a chance to add, to enhance your features, to enhance your product. So that's the thinking. Okay. Otherwise, I would say this question has a trap because very many people would quickly point to the integrated change control process, which is typically predictive, and yet the nature of the work requires incremental delivery or early delivery to satisfy the customer. So you see, you're balancing the agile requirement, the agility of wanting to put your product on the market as soon as possible, at the same time going through the integrated change control process, which is not typically what the product owner would do. They would just prioritize. Okay, go ahead. So here the trick, the trap is in balancing, taking note of the agility, early delivery of a product, and now the integrated change control process, and you know the procedure.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, sir. So we will now take it from the second to the last line, that already the PM has analyzed the request, because it says, but the benefits outweighs the cost and effect. So that should now be the reason why they will go ahead with, I think for the first one, since we are delivering a product that has essential features, meaning the minimum viable product, is that it? To the market?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Right. Okay. So thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. I know we are on time now. And thank you for delivering this session. Thank you for just taking time to jump on this session for the 2 hours. And yeah, for always being there to support the candidates through their practice as well, and even as they plan to sit for the exams. Yeah. And
Nelson, and thank you for the team for a great audience.
Yeah. All right. And to the candidates, thank you so much for showing up once again. This is one more step to the right direction. So wishing you all the best as you prepare to sit for the exam. And if you have any questions, please post them in the chat, reach out to Robert directly. Yeah, like Robert, like you've seen on the chat saying it's always great to have these sessions with you. They are beyond even preparing for the PMP exam. So thank you. If you have any questions, reach out to Robert directly on LinkedIn on the contact details that he's shared, and we'll be able to assist as well. So have a good evening. We'll have another session on Thursday as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Have a good evening.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Robert. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.